guys, Masterpiss here, and in this video I'm going to go through the new spec that's just been made viable in 7.1.5, and that's the Breath of Sindragosa spec. Now this spec has always been available, but in 7.1.5 it has received a lot of buffs, and it's now made it probably the spec to go over Machine Gun. Only problem with it is it's very unforgiving if you stuff up the rotation, whereas Machine Gun you can stuff up and pick it back up immediately without having to really wait for a 2-minute cooldown. So the idea of the Breath of Sindragosa spec is to keep the Breath of Sindragosa going as long as possible, doing as much damage to as many targets. So you want to be building talents that are going to continue that longevity. So your first one in the 56 tree is you want to take Murder's Efficiency. Consuming a killing machine has the effect to give you 65% chance to give you a rune back. So another rune equals more runic power. Horn of Winter, of course, blow a horn, gain 2 runes and 20 runic power. Now this is a good one in the spec. It works about 2 or 3 times depending on which legendaries you have to just keep your breath going a little bit longer. Hungering Rune Weapon changes your Empower Rune Weapon to Hungering Rune Weapon, which will give you 1 rune and 5 runic power instantly every 1.5 seconds for 15 seconds. So this is a massive amount of runes and runic power. So you can basically just be sitting there spamming Obliterate while this is going. 60 and 75 don't really matter, but Winter is coming for the stun and Permafrost for the shielding's quite nice. Now in 90, I go Gathering Storms because this is going to give you a higher damage output. Your DPS is going to be just overall higher with this one. If you want to get your breath going longer than normal, longer than you're able to, Runic Actuation helps with the upkeep of it. Not a lot. It's not going to increase the damage substantially. Gathering Storms is going to get you a higher damage burst. And of course in your 100T it's a Breath of Sindragosa spec, so you have to take Breath of Sindragosa, otherwise it's pointless. Now I have seen some specs that run Frost Scythe with Breath of Sindragosa. Not a huge fan because it's based on doing AoE damage from Frost Scythe rather than Breath of Sindragosa or Gathering Storms. And then you end up just sitting there spamming Frost Scythe, so not a huge fan of it, but it does do quite a bit of damage. Okay, so the stats for Breath of Sindragosa spec are very similar to Machine Gun spec, so you want to be getting your crit to 25, give 25-30, call it. Haste you want to get to 20%. You don't really want to go over 20% because then it just becomes kind of a waste of a stat. It's either 20% or 25%. Don't go 23, don't go 22. It's either 20 or 25. And then just everything into Mastery. Don't worry too much about versatility. Look, it's not terrible to have because it's still weighed pretty well. But you want to be chucking as many stats into Mastery as possible now because pretty much all your damage is frost damage. So relics at the moment are in a weird spot because of how the spec works and the tier pieces that are coming out. So up until you have your 4 set, ambidextrity is still the best, but once you get your 4 set, blast radius takes control. So blast radius goes ahead of ambidextrous once you have your 4 set. Now the problem with that is not all fights will be optimal for Breath of Sindragosa, so you may want to swap back to Machine Gun where ambidextrity is still the best by far. So probably just leave it at ambidextrity unless you're really confident that you're going to be staying Breath of Sindragosa the whole time. Okay, so with the Breath of Sindragosa spec, I think it heavily relies on a few key items, mainly legendaries. So the first one is the belt. So it gives you 15% chance to refund 2 runes on an Obliterate. Now with this spec, you're going to be spamming Obliterate a lot. And if you're getting 2 free runes, that's 20 free runic power. So this is just going to keep your breath going longer. So the belt really helps with the longevity of your breath. The next one is the ring, so gives your empowered rune weapon additional charge, plus reduces the cooldown by 10%. So this one adds a minimum of 15 seconds to your breath, because a hungering rune weapon goes for 15 seconds. Now this doesn't include the runic power it gives you, it doesn't include all the runes it gives you, it doesn't include the Gathering Storms buff it's going to give you while you're spamming your obliterates here. It gets you to the 10 maximum stacks pretty quickly. So this is a really, really good one, and I think it's absolutely crucial to the spec. Now there is a trinket that lines up really well with the ring. If you don't have the ring, the trinket I think is a must as well. So this trinket drops off the Grand Magistrex in Nighthold, which is coming. So your attacks have a chance to reduce the cooldown on your remaining Empower rune weapon by 5 seconds. Now 5 seconds, and it's got a proc rate of 6 procs per minute for a Frost DK, roughly on average. So 6 per minute is 30 seconds off your cooldown per minute. So in a 2-minute cooldown, well, you've got the 3-minute cooldown on your breath, so your hungering rune weapon, goes down to 2 minutes. So then it's going to start lining up with your breaths quite nicely. And if you've got the ring, you've got an additional charge. Now, depending on what the proc rates are like, this might completely nullify the ring altogether. You might not need the ring, and you can swap to a different trinket like the wrists. Another one that's really important is our tier set. Now our tier set complements the Breath of Sindragosa spec really well. So Obliterate has an increased chance to proc Rhyme. Now what you're thinking here is Rhyme doesn't give us runic power, so why would I want to be using a Rhyme during my breath upkeep? That's because our 4 set gives us 8 runic power for every Howling Blast used on a Rhyme proc now. So it's not pointless to use a Rhyme besides pure damage. You do get runic power now over it. So our 4 set is just going to increase the longevities of our Breath of Sindragosa by a lot. So it's probably one you should be aiming for pretty quickly, whether you're sitting on normal or heroic while you're doing mythic. Just get your tier set as quickly as possible. Now the wrists are always going to be strong. They're just strong, and 15% increase to frost damage when Breath of Sindragosa's frost damage, when Remorseless Winter's frost damage. It's just an increase to that. The only problem is it doesn't help with the longevity of our breaths. So I think to be able to use the wrists, you really will have to have your 4 set and the trinket before you can successfully get away with it. And the only reason I say the helm is pretty decent is because with this spec you're going to be using Remorseless Winter a lot more, and you're going to be using your Rhyme procs. Well, you use them anyway, but now they're going to be meaning something besides pure damage. So look, I don't think the helm's a bad one to have, because now it's actually doing more damage to bosses, but the other 3 legendaries are probably the ones you want to be aiming for. So the most important thing about the Breath of Sindragosa spec is knowing the boss encounter and knowing your mechanics and when you can really use Breath of Sindragosa, because some fights may stop you from getting a full 150, 120 seconds onto the boss. So for example, Mythic Guam. Mythic Guam, you have 55 seconds from pull to do damage before he goes into his next phase, where you have to avoid the boss. So trying to use 2 hungering rune weapons to get a minute 20 on your Breath of Sindragosa is not going to work, because you're not going to get that time on the boss. So examples like that for knowing your boss encounter and knowing the timings of his mechanics will really be the difference between whether you're doing top tier DPS and where you're not doing top tier DPS. So where I'll start is your opener. So for this opener, let's just assume that you get to go balls to the wall on the boss. You get Lust at the start of the fight. So what you want to be doing is, with this spec here, you want to be taking advantage of gathering storms as much as possible. So what you want to be doing is you want to be starting off with pre-pots, of course, and you want to be starting off with gathering storms. Then you want to obliterate and obliterate. Now hopefully you get a proc. If not, that's just unlucky. Now Eye Horn of Winter here, and that should give you about this type of runic power. From there you want to go to Pillar of Frost and then use Sindragosa's Breath. And then you should be doing this a lot quicker, but you just then go into a spam. What we'll do now is I'll just wait 2 minutes for this, my cooldown to come back up, and we'll go through a proper opener. So on average, at about a 6 to 7 minute fight, I've been getting about 600k DPS single target on the Breath of Sindragosa spec. So what I'll do now is I'll just go through a full rotation. I'll try and keep up my breath for about, best I've been getting is 1 minute 40 seconds. That's without the tier set and without the trinket. So it is with the belt and the ring. So let's see how much DPS I can get on a 3 target cleave, and we'll see how we go from there. We'll do a full timer for
5,
sake.
4,
And we're gonna,
3,
I'm going
2,
to
1.
use a pre-pop. So start off, and let's go. Breath now, and we should be right. Yeah, we good. Oh yeah, getting some good procs. Come on, I need a belt proc. That was a belt proc. Yep. Yeah, we're in a good spot. We are in with another belt proc right now would be good. Alright, so now I've got to use a Hungry Rune Weapon charge because I'm in a bad spot, but it's okay because I think we're at 1.2 million, which is quite nice. Now the Rhyme procs there with the Forset will be giving me additional power, so that'll just help in the longevity. Because at the moment they're just doing damage, it's not helping keeping it up, which kind of hurts. It hurts using a global cooldown to just get that damage out, when I should be using it to keep it up. So second Hungering Rune Weapon, I'm going to use my second pot, my second thing. So we're at least a minute at the minute. So minute 10 coming up. Breath's going strong and still at 1.7 mil burst. So this is nice on a 3 target cleave. And I need to get some nice procs here to keep this going. So see how I'm ignoring the Rhyme procs at this point because they don't actually give me any, and that's it, we're done. So we got that for a minute 40. Yeah, awesome. Minute 40 at 1.1 million damage on a 3 target cleave, which is fucking huge. If we look at the breakdown of it, so Breath of Sindragosa is doing 34% of our damage. Oh, lost that. Go back to current, please. Which one was it? This one, minute 50. Okay, so Breath of Sindragosa is doing 34% of our damage. Remorseless Winter is doing 17% of our damage. So now that's hitting for 181k per tick. Howling Blast, of course, is doing a decent amount of damage, and Obliterate's really low on the list. And look, I didn't even Frost Strike once in that minute 40, minute 50. Now when you do go a full rotation, once Breath of Sindragosa is down, you just go back to a normal kind of spec. So you just go down to just Obliterates, Frost Strikes, and you're just really waiting for your breaths to come back up. So just like you would here, so Rhyme, Frost Strike, Rhyme. Now because you don't have Frozen Pulse, it doesn't really matter if you're keeping runes in the bank for, you know, when your breath is coming up or whatever. Or if you want to get a good Remorseless Winter up, so you can save a few runes in the bank to get up to 10 stacks. Now, a little trick that I noticed is the Rhyme procs actually count towards the Gathering Storms. That's it, guys. As always, thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments, comment section below. What I find the most important thing with this spec is to know the encounter. Know how long you're going to be able to use a breath, when the optimal time to use a breath is, and when not to use your breath. Because you don't want to be using your breath just before a mechanic that's going to force you away from the boss. That's all. Masterpiss, out.